Dr. Nakadar, do you believe medical marijuana dispensaries will end up being a gateway to the establishment of recreational marijuana dispensaries?
That is always a possibility, and it really at the end of the day depends on the community. Every community will have that decision to make. Just like they mentioned that you opt into medical and you have to opt out of recreational, so the two laws were kind of written conversely, but it is a process that is done. So you can opt in medically, you can set standards, you can set regulations, and do no more than that for the rest of the time the community goes on. At any point that community decides, or the city decides that that business is not operating up to those standards that were required by the licensing at that time, those are reviewed on a yearly basis, and the township or municipality has full control to pull that license at any time. So the community is always going to be in control of these businesses, similar to liquor licenses and agencies of that we have in the state. They're regulated very similarly, and that's really kind of what the new agency is going to be doing. So you'll have regulation for both sides of it. You guys get to decide which you opt into, which one you opt out of, and what you end up having in the community. That's what it is. And I think some of the comments about access and getting to that is somewhat skewed. You know, not everybody knows someone who grows marijuana. I certainly never knew someone who grew marijuana before that, and if I was sick, I'd have no way of knowing or finding those people. So it's a little bit of a misconception that the medicine will always be around. That's really untested. There's no regulation to what the quality of that medication is, and that's really why this system is important, because all the medication is tested, lab verified on 2 separate occasions by a third-party lab, and so there's really no bias or other things that go into it. So,
Dr. Nakadar, have you considered the impact that the commercialization of marijuana will have on schools and acreage and blue line collaboration out of your own benefit? Basically, to summarize, have you considered the impact that marijuana will have in the schools?
Yeah, none of the laws or rules or regulations really allow for kids or particular access to children. The only way children can access marijuana is through their parents. So a parent would have to come in, sign for their patient as a parent.
Excuse me, please don't speak out.
So that's the way that cannabis can be used in children and minors, is through the certification through 2 physicians, as well as their parent being the caregiver at that point. So they have to administer and give the medications. From a standpoint of, is it something that should be used in schools? No, absolutely not. I think it's very detrimental to kids to be using it in school. I think it causes a lot of the situations and social issues that we do see with marijuana. However, having a facility in your community where it's legal already is not going to change those statistics. So you better be prepared for this to be in the schools regardless of whether there's a facility here or not. Now, however, if you do have a facility where there are medical directors or with people who are educating kids, who are going into the schools and teaching them about drug awareness, not only about cannabis, but other medications, opioids, the dangers with benzodiazepines, Xanax, and all those things. And I think that's the business that you want to partner with, in communities that will benefit from this situation and protect the community. So protecting the community doesn't mean just not having a marijuana establishment. It's having an established marijuana establishment that helps the community deal with some of these issues, right? We're going to have it in the schools. It's going to be there. It's going to come from Detroit. It's going to come from all the other communities that everybody's concerned about. Whether you have it on grow spec, whether you have it here or there, is really, those are the real issues, right? Do you want it near a school? Is it, no, you shouldn't be near a school. Because why? Yes. Can that increase the likelihood that some of that ends up in the schools? Yes. So do we create buffers? Yes. Do we do the same thing with alcohol establishments? Yes. We create buffers. There's special regulated land uses. And that's really what's going on here, is we're creating those special regulated land uses and doing those appropriately in a community. So if there's communities with schools that have issues.
Dr. Nakadar, what are your thoughts on secondhand smoke of marijuana, and are there side effects for our children?
That's a good question. The medical community, from a standpoint of studies and information data that we have, is limited. There were some studies done back in California that didn't quite equate the smoke from cannabis to be harmful to the lungs as the smoke from tobacco. So there's definitely differences in the damage and the risks associated with tobacco smoking versus cannabis smoking. However, smoking isn't the preferred method or use of cannabis as a medicine. So as a medicine speaking, we typically recommend ingested forms of lower dose THC and CBD combinations, as well as using vaporized oils and concentrates that particularly are much more metered dosed and able to be controlled. From a standpoint of secondhand smoke and what those effects are, whether it's recreational or medicinal, it's obviously not recommended. In closed quarters and in large amounts of smoke, I mean, there can be secondary effects to the person who's not consuming it, but in the room. So just like tobacco, I mean, those effects are there. However, if you entered a room that someone smoked in, it's not like you're going to get high or have THC in your system either. So it's not like a super absorbent or anything like that. But there are some risks involved with combusting any plant product or any product from that standpoint. It produces tar, carcinogens, and so on and so forth. So those things can definitely be increased in risks. And I think some of those things will be studied, and we'll have some more information about cannabinoids and its medicinal use in actual lung disease and so on and so forth. THC, which the compound itself is actually considered a bronchodilator, so it actually improves.
Dr. Nakadar, are you involved with a large company that is focused on developing cannabis business or products in Michigan?
I do have an affiliation with a large corporation called Acreage Holdings. I was actually a medical director for another company that was acquired by that company, but at this time I don't have any affiliation to Acreage Holdings or that. I'm actually medical director for a few different businesses and companies from that standpoint, and that's kind of from a facility standpoint and from a retail standpoint. My goal is to have facilities that follow healthcare practices, provide information to the patients, provide information for dosing, how to take cannabis, how to use it, and really kind of what the real risks and issues that come with using THC, CBD, and everything else that goes along with it. Typically, I would have a pharmacist that I would refer people to, but in this situation, I don't. I have to deal with dispensaries. A lot of these dispensaries and rules and everything were written by the recreational marijuana industry. That is very true, and a lot of them are doing a lot of different things to make their footprint and make their establishments in different communities. And yes, they do different ways of doing that, petitions, ordinances, all these different things. And I've seen all these things happen in different communities. I can tell you the best situations are ones where the community gets ahead of the situation, provides the best application process to bring the best candidates forward, and develops areas and agrees as a community on where these places should or shouldn't exist. Again, if you want the black market to decrease, having a regulated facility helps the black market decrease. There's less need for people to go to their neighbors or other places to get it if they have a qualified facility to do that. And that's kind of what I do on a regular basis on this cannabis industry across the state of Michigan. A lot of things were said about cannabis and its harmful effects and its addictive qualities, and these are things.
So when you hear about marijuana coming in from California, that's illegal
at LAX.
Yeah.
You can take it to the airport in LAX. So airports are easing up. TSA doesn't have any particular memo or action against medical marijuana. If they do find it, they don't take any action against it. They don't have any policy to or prosecute.
Well, DTW, stay away.
All TSA really does not have a policy to go after or regulate medical marijuana per se. They're there for explosives and terrorist activity for the most part, and I've had many patients travel with cannabis products, and as well as I'm telling you, laws in places like LA are easing up, and their TSA will allow you to carry marijuana freely right onto the plane. They will not stop you.
Well, I had a guy who got locked up, so I just don't want to take
right, so there's confusion on both sides,
Yeah.
but that's actually the policies and the
I
procedures
notice
at
everybody
LAX.
paying close attention to all this, so that's good.